going on. It looks like it's locking me yet again. Let's see. Is it going to lock me into this mode? Yeah, it's going to lock me into landscape mode. No idea why it's doing that on the actual app. I've tried messing with everything I can think of. It doesn't do this through StreamYard, and it doesn't do it on my computer. But even when I change things on the phone, it also I set up an entire stream earlier, and it wouldn't let me get in. So when I try to get in, it would just say start stream live streaming, and then it would just kick me out. So I'm over it. I'm just gonna stream like this for right now. And because this is more of a hey guys, what's going on? Let's see what you guys are up to. I want to show you what I'm up to, and just chatting and hanging out, as well as I had kind of an odd problem, and I'm gonna walk you guys through how it's doing today. But basically, I got back from my travels and found that the planted tanks that two of them that I have are just in terrible shape. All the plants are melting. Bunch of rare plants, expensive plants that I've saved over 5-6 years, that I've been collecting. They're all dying, and yet the fish are totally fine, and the parameters are totally fine. So I took one action in one tank, and another action in another tank. And then what I did was I did what I should have done in the first place, and I got a hold of a botanical ecologist, an aquatic botanist ecologist. I forget the actual name of in order in which those things go on his PhD resume, but basically what he does on the DL is he consults for big professional companies that make fertilizers, that make let's just say big brands you guys have heard of. I met him at AGA, and he talked me through this for about a half hour this morning, and we went over the science literally of what's going on, and also kind of like why it happened and so forth. So if you're interested in how you could have a totally healthy looking tank, let me turn this around real quick. A totally healthy looking tank, you can have a tank that looks like this. You leave it for 2 weeks. I mean, these are messy, but they're healthy. I mean, look at this. Ariel Callan is doing crazy, doing super well. And there's no CO2 or anything in these tanks. These are just tanks. So then let me show you the tank that is causing the problem. And the problem is, and this room's a mess, obviously, but the problem is that it's the tank that's my baby. This is my lake inlay tank, and look at it. It is just thrashed. There is this junk all over it. Let me turn the light up on it so we don't get that weird strobe effect from the LED. And I haven't added water. Let me get here the turkey baster so I can show you guys just how bad this is. So you're looking at the tank here, and this used to be a nice carpet, right guys? 3-4 weeks ago, this was a nice carpet of tiny little baby tears growing. Now look at all this crud that is in my tank. Is algae? Is it fungus? What is it? And so I got the answers. Is it fish poop? Is it, what is it? But it's not just at the bottom. See this rock? Every day, even if I clean it. So the first thing I did was I cleaned it, and I thought, oh no, what's happened? I mean, look at this plant. Like that's part of one of my crypts. It's totally melted. Here's another crypt right here, and it's totally melted. I mean, look at it. It's just falling apart. Yet the fish, they're all super happy and plucky, go lucky. The other thing, and the only reason the guy was able to assist me, the PhD that I met at AGA, is because I had a bunch of plants right here. I had a bunch of Bacopa, Monieri, and Colorata. And you guys can probably see that underwater it is thrashed. I mean, look at a stem from underwater versus where they're coming up out of the water. Look at that. Gnarly. I mean, this is like melting to the max. It's got algae growing on it. It's an issue. If you look over here, you can see, look at all this just junk and dead leaves, clear leaves, just meltedness going on. And I mean, there's just, it's out of control. So the fact that this was what gave him the smoking gun was the fact that there was not a lot of hair algae or stuff other than that growing in the tank. Like there wasn't a bunch of filamentous or diatom algae. And on the stones that look so dirty, they clean right off. It's just like hanging on. Same with like this rotala that's all leggy and yet is covered in mulm and fluff. And up here too, this is the most algae you can actually see as algae, as typical algae. I was thinking about doing a standalone episode of this, but I wanted to actually just kind of walk you guys through it and spend a little more time and also just talk with you guys and tell you guys a couple other things that are going on. But in any case, so the bacopa that was here, and I cut a lot of it, which was dumb, that was really healthy. But I figured since the legs were rotting that it was no good, so I cut it. Well, you can see that it's rotting at the nodes. And yeah, so also, I mean, my Crypt rotalas, look at the ends of them. They're starting to melt. I mean, these are pricey plants. They're not the easiest plants. And so I was really proud of how well they were doing about 9 months into this tank being planted. Now, one thing that is going to be part of the riddle that I can tell you right apparently, I think a fuse just got blown. Hold on. You got it, honey? I was like, oh no, did I do that? And then I realized you're in there. So hold up, guys. While we're getting the fuse tripped back, what's going on, Shanna? Cyril, what's going on? Skydancer, Euroguppy, who else is lurking around here? Kyle Thompson, Linda Worth, Jerry Serple Morris, what's up? 3G, good to see ye. Kyle, what's up? Casual Aquatic, hello. Hey, we've got light, thank you. The book of Genesis, thank you, honey. Let there be light, everybody. So, yeah. It's just ridiculous. Look at this mulm. I mean, look how thick it is in the dwarf hairgrass over here. It's so thick that I can suck it up, and look at that. I thought, how could there be that in less than a month? And then I looked at it closely, and then I looked at it under the microscope. It's not mulm, it's algae. And it's an odd type of algae, but it's an algae nonetheless. And so what I did after I determined that that was the case was I put some Flourish XL in there, which is basically an algicide more than it is anything else. This stuff, Flourish XL. It'll melt your crypts and your valves sometimes, but I figured it had to be done. What happened? Everything got worse. So then I really started scratching my head. Then all of these things started rotting and melting. Meanwhile, like this stuff flakes right off in these big old plaques. And look at this. The rotala that was doing great is just covered in this algae stuff. And you can take it, I mean, I can get it off mostly with a turkey baster. Just doing this a few times gets it kind of clean. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, that gets most of it off. Same with over here. But you can see that, look, there was no nourishment whatsoever. So this is another clue that he was able to then, show me. And that is essentially that the plants were doing well. Down at the bottom, the leaves are doing well. But at the top, they're doing tiny, tiny growth. They've condensed, they've conserved their energy. And they've gone for the light, which is really, really odd. Because why would they go for the light in a tank with crazy light? And that's what was puzzling me. So what it turns out is I did a test for nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia. And what would y'all guess that the nitrites, nitrates, and ammonia were at? Boy, is that gonna... Hold on. Since the filter's all stopped, now I gotta prime a few. This is the other tank that's hosed, by the way. This tank is hosed for a different reason, which is rather fascinating also, and needs a bunch of water, but I hurt my back, so I gotta get help from someone to do that. And this has always been an interesting filtration system in that these filters have the impeller down under here, whereas they just have to siphon water up through, and if it gets clogged or if the water level falls, all of it gets jacked up. So literally I'll have to fill this tank up, which is okay because I've been meaning to do that anyways. But you see how dirty this water coming out is anyways? So this tank crashed for an unrelated but also interesting reason. And again, nitrites, nitrates, ammonia, 0,000, to the point where there's no nitrates. Like, it's a problem that there's such low nitrates in this tank. And so the pH is just around neutral in this tank, and on the other tank, it's actually dropped down to around 6.5. And so what I was told is that what happened is that these plants got starved of nitrogen and carbon. And it happened so quickly that it crashed the tank. So I was told by this guy who is a PhD working for one of the biggest companies in the world of aquatic tech and aquatic chemistry. In fact, he's the head of research and development for them. And he said, get CO2 running quick on this tank. So I'm getting the CO2 in here because what happened is there's no accessible carbon, yet the algae has carbon that's accessible because all that mold, that is melting plants. So what happened is there wasn't enough nitrogen. Like, I had no nitrates in here, and the root tabs are already deplenished in the soil because it's such a high light tank, he thinks. And so that's why I'm getting such tiny leaf growth too. Like down here, I thought, oh yeah, I just got my carpet dialed in. That's why I'm getting the tiniest of tiny little baby dwarf, Cuban dwarf, dang it, dwarf baby tears, Cubana. And then I started to look at, for instance, this, like this leaf. And I realized, well, this is already dead. What's going on here? And see this whole layer of skin on it here? That's not actually, it's not melting. It's a dead leaf. Dead leaves don't melt like that. They're not full of live cells. So this is actually a either cyano or regular algae, cyanobacteria or an algae that has taken to eating anything in here that it can, and that is what is making up all this fluff. It's not mulm, it's biological junk. Basically all my Rotala wallachia and stuff that was back in here that now is just thready and gone, all those little nodes, like from this stuff, you can see some here that's still melting. This stuff here melted and it became carbon. Now, what I didn't realize is that the carbon that melted off and floated around the tank into this freaking mess is available to the algae, but only free carbon is available to your plants to respirate, or CO2 basically. So it needs to be bonded to the oxygen and be free in the air. It can't be bound up in some complex carbon compound, with a few exceptions. And two, it can't be straight literal carbon, because that acts as an algicide, just like the CChem XL. And so I did a water change, obviously thinking that would help. I cleaned all this moldy looking stuff up with a turkey baster by hand, and 2 days later it's back. And literally, I mean, I'm just like one little section of this. Watch how much we can get up. I mean, it's pretty gnarly and disgusting how quickly this stuff grows. I mean, look at that. It is not a pretty picture in the tank. I mean, it's a mess. So that is also then, and I didn't know this until the AGA really, which all of these things that are melting, so all this fine rotala, and all the fine leaf stuff really, all the mini bacopa and the mini rotala macrondra butterfly and the mini Ludwigia ex lacustris that's here, when it melts and these leaves fall off, they're full of compounds that, one, will actually send a signal in the plants that are still living, in the part of the plant that's still living. So if, for instance, right here is a good example. This one is all leggy. If it's leggy and the top crown is still trying to grow, which is where all the hormones of the plant are directed from, is in the top crown, the top maybe inch or 2 inches of the plant, all the way down to maybe the top centimeter if it's a tiny plant. And you can see that on a lot of plants. Look in your tanks too. It is the top crown that has all the hormonal signals for how fast the rest of the plant is going to grow. And so what happened up here was the bacopa that was growing out in the atmosphere thought it had plenty of CO2 atmospherically, because your atmosphere in your room or whatever, in the air in general, is actually more and better CO2 than even what gets infused into your tank usually. And so then what's going on is that the plant is being told, oh, I got plenty of CO2. And then at the bottom, the roots are sensing, I don't have CO2. There's nothing in the substrate that I can eat. And so it becomes deficient in nitrates, in CO2, and everything else. Now, when a plant is deficient in one part of the plant, so for instance, this part of the plant's doing well on this Ludwigia, and then the stuff that's underwater is not. So we talked about just now, the top of the plant tells the entire plant hormonally whether you're going to grow bushy or dense, how long the spaces between each node are, and what color you're going to turn. And I didn't know that that's all in the head of the plant. It's all in the newest growth, which kind of makes sense because the newest growth is most in tune with what's going on with light and everything else. So then it releases chemicals throughout the rest of the plant, and the chemicals that go to the lower part of the plant say, put out roots, look for nutrients, and then the other part says, don't grow any more leaves down in this low part where there isn't enough of whatever element you're lacking. It could have been that I was lacking phosphate. Just turns out it was nitrates and carbon. And so what happens is then you get these leggy plants. Now, usually leggy plants, what happens is there's not enough light. But we know here that this is a 6,000 par light, and that right down there, it's still 2,500 par underneath the water. It is an incredibly powerful light for this shallow little tank. So we know that it wasn't saying you don't have enough light. It was saying you don't have enough carbon, you don't have enough nitrogen. And where was it getting it? It was getting it in the atmosphere. And so it continued to grow in the atmosphere densely, and big leaves. Isn't this kind of odd? How the little leaves are underneath and the big leaves are at the canopy of a bacopa? Usually it's the reverse. So like underwater bacopa, let's see if we can find a healthy bacopa around here somewhere. We might have to go into the other room real quick. Yeah, we probably will. So the healthy bacopa over here, when we look at like a healthy bacopa or plant, the top of the plant is dense and the bottom of the plant gets wider. These are the bigger leaves. And they can decide, like this is a case of not enough light legginess. So these guys are reaching for the light, and as soon as they're out of the shadows down here, they're like, okay, we're good, and they start putting out their leaves again. Same with all of these little plants. Now, up here, these all, once they make it to the surface, they're like, yay, we've got all the CO2, we've got all the nitrogen from free nitrogen, which actually doesn't help them. But we've got all the air, we've got all the CO2, and all the trace elements that happen to be in the air, and in if it's an environment that is humid, they've got all that. And so then they transform into their land type plant, their immersed plant. By the way, while I left, we got another flower on this Cophifolia, which is really pretty, and it's only facing the tank here. So in any case, over in this tank, you can also see where like this plant is getting burned. So there's like a lot of things going on. But when we find a bacopa, like here, like any of these bacopas, the leaves are bigger at the bottom. See this? The leaves are way bigger at the bottom. And the crown, they can either be the same size, but usually right in the tip of the crown, they're going to be smaller as they're growing out. And same when they're starving of light or whatever, that's when you'll see that inversion where they're way bigger at the top. And the same, it doesn't mean that they're just starving of light. It means they're starving of anything. And so they're putting out that surface area to absorb it in the water column. So like down here, they're starving of nutrients or light, and you can tell that it's light because as soon as you can get rays of light to the top of the plant, it opens up. Same with like this leggy stuff. It is tangled in all these other plants, and once it gets to the light, it's good to go. So this tank has plenty of fish and poop and stuff going on to feed this. You can just tell how quickly everything's growing by the fact that these plants are all sturdy and everything too. And then we've got so much immersed growth. And I still need to plant a lot of this stuff, but you can also just tell by the colors of the plants, they're doing well and all that. And and the moss is growing like crazy. So what's going on, like I said, in that other tank is it starved itself of the nitrates and the carbon. And because of that, now it is a wasteland. So it needs nitrates, nitrogen, and carbon. However, part of the problem, this filter, which I opened up for you guys so you could see all the guts of it, it has one cyanobacteria growing on the lit side of this spillway, which is just the filter media bag that I pulled out. Two, it's got normal algae, and when I say normal, it's actually the same annoying algae that is fluffy and flaky and molmy. See this stuff? It's all that fluffy, flaky, molmy algae. And so I'll need to clean this. I'll want to kill the cyanobacteria, so I probably will treat with erythromycin unfortunately, as much as I don't like to use antibiotics in my tank, but I can use a quarter dose of what you'd use on fish to treat cyanobacteria in a tank. But what I'm going to have to do now is take every bit of this that I can get my hands on with a siphon or with this turkey baster and arduously collect it. And the other thing that's going on in here that I didn't realize is my snails. I don't have a lot of snails because Lake Inlet, I don't have the species of snails that are in there, and I didn't want to introduce something that would go wild in here and take over. So now they would have been helping to eat. So what I'll have to do now is I'll actually have to reduce the light, which is fine. But then anything that is melting, I'll literally have to trim off the part that's melting. Hopefully the roots will survive. But what this also told the botanical ecologist, aquatic botanist, whatever you want to call him, this also tells him that my thin layer of nutrients here, my ADA substrate that's only 2 inches or so thick underneath the sand, that it's already taxed out. So in 9 months, it's already taxed out. I need to add root tabs, or I needed to have been column feeding way more. And I have to admit, I didn't add any nitrates to this. I always figure I have too many fish in there. The nitrates are going to be fine. They're going to be like 50 parts per million, and I'll have to fight to keep them down. But that was not the problem in this tank at all. The problem was it was starved of nitrates. And then once your plants decide, okay, all our growth needs to be towards the top, we're going to grow these teeny, dense, healthy leaves underwater. As soon as this were to breach the top of the water, though, they'd get huge and they'd grow all over to take in all that light and all that atmospheric energy and carbon. And then beyond that, then what's at the bottom would be told, get lost, get rid of it. And that's why you see these leggy guys, even though they've got plenty of light wasn't lacking, whereas in the other tank, light was lacking, and they had to reach, and then the leaves got normal size when they saw light again. Well, instead in this tank, they're reaching, and then there's nothing to reach for. They're just totally out of luck as far as carbon and nitrogen. And those are very fundamental things that they need to survive. And so beyond all that, then this crap, this algae, is not just algae. It's cyanobacteria, and it's also all the steroids, the hormones, and everything else that is in a plant when it dies. And so when a plant dies, like I was just saying, they start to melt, they start to fall apart. And as they fall apart, what the plant does is it tries to save itself. Now, if it's a crypt or something that lives deep underneath the water and isn't going to be immersed anytime soon, it thinks it's going to have to be underwater, it's going to put its energy towards the roots. If it's a plant like Bacopa that seasonally is usually half underwater, half out of water, and crypts can do that too, but the thing is, these crypts they don't have any part of themselves out of water yet. So even these plants like the Ludwigia that was floating and was able to get a little bit above water, then it could crawl and it could use anything in here to pull itself up on and get itself the nutrients it needs, the carbon and the nitrogen. First the carbon from the atmosphere, and then hopefully, it's hoping nitrogen's going to come from somewhere in the water column or somewhere in the ground if it keeps growing roots. So then it starts growing roots like crazy. Well, what happens is the signal and the hormone to tell it to grow roots like crazy, to seek out food and forget about growing the leaves, that intensifies the growth of the algae. That hormone is also an instigating hormone in algae growth because it's a simple plant cell. So just like it encourages these plants to reach up and stop growing down low and to get leggy, it tells the algae, here's a bunch of steroids to tell you, steroids and hormones, grow, grow, grow. even if you don't have the energy, just grow. And what happens if they don't have the energy? The last step of what really made this feedback loop the worst is they cannibalize themselves. So plants then cannibalize themselves, and what they do is they eat their good leaves that are lower down. So these stemmy plants that had leaves all the way down when I left, they ate all of them until there's just nothing but the slightest nub, which is where all the hormones and the brain of the plant telling it to grow up, grow wide, start a new node, whatever it's telling the rest of the plant, it's now put all its resources into one, growing up towards the surface and trying to get some air or CO2 or light, whatever it was lacking, and two, roots. So the roots all of a sudden in this tank start growing really thick, and it's hard for you guys to see, but this is hair grass. This shouldn't have 2-inch thick roots. So the roots are then growing down into that nutrient layer, and so all these plants are spending their energy melting their lower leaves and putting their roots out. And you can see the ones that are out of the water, how much they're doing that. You can see every node is ready for nutrients. It's looking for nutrients with roots. Some of them have like three root nodes or four root nodes coming out. So that's what's going on in this tank. And to reverse it, it's going to be a slightly slow process because we have to, one, get the filter back up, because right now it's only filtering what the fish are producing. So when I start introducing like an all-in-one daily or nitrates or nitrites into either the soil and root tab or as a liquid fertilizer, boom, it's going to say, we don't have enough colony to process this. So what I'll probably do is throw an extra hang off the back filter on it for a while so that it can cycle twice as quickly and it can colonize twice as quickly. Then we'll have to hit it with the erythromycin, which will kill all of this cyanobacteria. And then you simply just have to physically remove all that algae looking, the mulm that looks like algae. Beyond all that, I mean, that's really what, it's a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of work. Now, what happened over here is completely different in that there are some nitrates now. This tank has cichlids. And what happened? Well, their filter stopped. And just like it did when the power got tripped here. And you can see the stratification even in the fogginess. And I know it's all dirty. But what happened is they're cichlids. And so they started digging and they ripped up every plant. And now every plant is floating. Well, now that floating plant material has blocked out all the light. So none of the plants that were left can even grow. And so now they've got a lower oxygen level, a lower light level, and everything sucks. Their life just sucks. So yeah, and this is a 40-gallon tank here, and there are 2 Siamese algae eaters, an angelfish, and then I want to say 4 or 5 of these little cichlids from Lake Victoria that I got from Lawrence, Kent. Yet they're still having babies, so go figure. But look, this one just kicked up all that mulm and dust and dirt. There's a baby. They're mouth brooders, so they don't really care, and they're used to the water going down in the hot season and them living in a little mud hole. Now, the angelfish isn't going to be happy with any of this, but that angelfish, she is my biggest, and she's the meanest that I've ever had. So she can't get along with anybody. But I just found that interesting. Now, one last interesting thing talking about algae and tank cycling and all that, and then I'll get back to y'all, is this tank, which looks nastier than all the other tanks, but look how beautiful my Lake Turkana jewel cichlids are. They're happier than all get out. Even though they're living in a algae-infested, nasty place, that only Aloydia is the only plant that will grow in this, and that's only if it's half floating. And it's because their pH is at 8.4. And 8.4 for my fish room, none of my plants can survive that because they get shocked. Now, I know there's plenty of plants that do. It's just all my plants are acclimated to slightly acidic water for the most part. So I just wanted to show you guys that, and now I'll sit down and shut up and read the comments. But I wanted to show you guys that the other tanks are all, everybody else is doing good. My scud tanks and my Daphnia tanks are doing good for my wild bettas, and then my little killifish are growing out, and so are my other bettas. Whoa, hi guys. My bettas are growing out also. You can see the adults are at the top, but there's also baby bettas. Where are you, baby bettas? There's a baby betta. That are getting a pretty good size now, so they'll probably be moved out from with their parents soon. And this is a teeny tank, but they're doing okay, so they're hanging tight for a moment. And then in here, nothing's really new other than everybody's growing. All my Papua New Guinea pseudomagills and threadfins, and then one African killifish, and then all the Pacific Island and other pseudomagills. And then all the baby, oh, they're so cute. I love them. They're my favorite. Thank you, Regis, if you're watching. The baby, the babies, they're just the cutest little babies. Samurai gouramis. And there's more of them over there. There's another one. But yeah, so this tank, which has always had sand and no substrate and no chemical ferts or anything like that, I moved the pair of Tianacara candidii, these guys. I moved them over here, and obviously I still need to clean all my tanks. I need to do water top-offs. There's an endless list of crap I need to do in here. But the little female, she's happy. She's getting a fat belly again. The male, he's all colorful and happy. And they're doing their thing in there. And when they laid eggs in the other tank so many times, the snails kept eating them. Well, there's hardly any snails in this tank. There's a few ramshorns and like 2 neorites in here, and that's it. So hopefully they'll have better luck, and not the snails won't get to their babies in this tank. So that's the thinking anyways. Even though they are a South American cichlid in with a bunch of Papua New Guinean critters and Oceania critters. So there's that. And then there's also, I mean, not a whole lot of interesting stuff going on other than some plants. The shrimp colony, my aquatic arts breeder starter kit, I moved into this room out of the kitchen, and nobody was getting eggs. So I was like, "What's going on? Why isn't everybody getting eggs? You've all shed. Why aren't you? Where are the eggs? Give them up." Also, look at that Kabamba furcata. It's been growing like wild, and I just put this light here to film with, not so much to for any like for growing plants or anything. But what I noticed is as soon as I added just a little bit of crushed coral, now I've got at least 2 females that have, within 2 days of doing that, I've got 2 females now that have eggs. So they just didn't have enough hardness in the water. They needed a little bit of KH, a little bit of GH. And now they're ready when the males are ready. And so I missed the first window of the males swimming all over the place wanting to do their thing with the females. But it'll happen again every month or so, usually around the full moon. It's for some reason I noticed. But yeah, so now we've got a few females in here that are carrying eggs. So I'm happy about that, because I was kind of puzzled, like, why no eggs? Why you no have no eggs? Then I got another Daphnia tank, another in here, just another random wild shrimp strain, and basically snail HQ. When I had pea puffers, that's where I'd grab the snails from. And then we've got the Endler / guppy tank, and then here we've where I moved the Tianacara candidii. I actually put in all those exclamation point rasboras that I had, and all the Kubota or Kubotai rasboras that I had. I moved them all into here. Now in here, the next problem is that I just have a million baby snails that eat eggs. So they're not really doing anything other than cleaning for me in the meantime. But the fact that Malaysian trumpet snails, in theory, they're hormonally, they're like, we gotta have babies now. Look, I even got baby samurai guramis in here. Um, more baby samurai gurami. More baby samurai gurami. But yeah, and then more purple tetras. More orange phantoms. Um, so then, oh, and then the last update was going to be that the betas are in this big tank, and I was like, all right, guys, what's your deal? Why aren't you spawning Rasbo and your lady? And so I put them in here, and I'm gonna see if they'll spawn. Although they're really just eating my blue malawas, which is stressing me out because I need to send Jason some blue malawas and one other person too, and they already had so much trouble over the last year. So I don't know. I might move them out of here, but I thought like, oh, they've got so much room in here between them and the fact that there's like 4 tetras and like 10 corridoras and a 40 breeder. Like nothing will bug their babies. And I put the heater in the corner so they could have this like humid corner that's like 82 degrees in case like the problem was they weren't getting enough humidity and heat in their corner. So this tank should be dropped in humidity in water level because of trying to breed anything like a gourami or a betta. You want to make sure that they have, this much or whatever for their babies so that their babies will be able to develop their labyrinth organ. Because if they don't have humid air to be breathing in while they're transforming and stuff, they won't grow their labyrinth organ right, and it'll collapse, and then they won't be able to use it. And that's not like a huge deal in captivity, but it's better to have, healthy fish that have their whole anatomy right. So, yeah, that's what's going on. All right, let me turn this around. Now that I spent 42 minutes complaining, let me pay attention to you guys because I've been a terrible host. So, what's up, guys? Screaming Fly, what's going on? Tampa Tom, what is up? Silver Creek Aquatics, what is up? Linkmaster Forever, Moose. Who else is in here? And did anybody ask me a question that I missed lately? Hey, Alex, what part of the world would you travel to if someone were going to try and collect an undiscovered species of fish? Honestly, North America in Appalachia, there's a lot of species yet to be, like darters that people are debating over. That would be the easiest to reach for most Americans and stuff. So that would be high up on the list. But, I mean, if you're looking for completely new and novel fish, definitely the Southeast Asian islands. So anything from Taiwan down to Papua New Guinea over to Malaysia and in between, all those little islands, any of them that have a lake or a freshwater stream that's there year round, probably have a unique Stiphodon species. I'm going to wash my hands, guys, just so I don't contaminate that funky algae into anything else. But yeah, any of that part of the world. The Congo is actually pretty unexplored too. Deep Congo for small fish. And also if you go from there, you can then you'd include probably things like even like Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, those places that have been racked by war for a long time. They probably are holding a lot of killifish, dwarf gourami or dwarf cichlids, because they where was it? They just released a journal article. If you guys are channel members for $1.99, go to the community tab, and there's a whole journal thing on where extreme cichlids live. So extreme in the sense that they live in water that has a pH of 9, or they live in 105 degrees Fahrenheit water, like the ones in Eritrea and Ethiopia. These really extreme cichlids, and there's 26 of them, and some of them are brand new. There's one in Iran that Heiko Blair just found, and Anton Lamboj, he just found what, 3 or 4 different species just off tributaries of the Congo. For that matter, deep Colombia, where the FARC used to control it, where the not good guys used to control it, the guerrillas. Also, by the way, I'll be putting out a video soon on this, which is the F Zone. Their most expensive, which is only $130, and it comes with 2 bubble counter carbs, which is just funny to me, and a solenoid, and it comes with the dual pressure gauge and dual locking O-rings and all that stuff. But I'm gonna be trying that out over on the 2 tanks in this room over here. And also, I just want to shout out Luke and or Pierre Wang, as he goes on here, with Alan Bauer too, because they sent me home with some stuff, or shipped me stuff after AGA, the Aquatic Gardeners Association. And so I got some of the rare plants that I was looking for. And now, basically, I was hoping to put them in that tank that's melted, but I'm not going to put them anywhere near that. But you can see I've got some kind of funky, fun, bright colored, new variants of various things. Persicarias that I love, golden Niceas, the little tiny Mayaka species, and then over here, what was this? Rotala nungensis lavender, and then Rotala indica golden, and then obviously the angelfish were having babies on these, but the beautiful huge. This is what those little scrappy red plants are in the lake inlay tank. But the beautiful Crypspiralis red. This is not the red tiger. This is the red. And then under that, there is the Barclay longifolia that is just an incredible crimson underneath the green. And both of those plants, when they get near the surface and they get large, they have a metallic shimmer. So I love that about them. Also, look at my Logonandra eboldi is finally widening up, and the powder color. A lot of people say you can't get the whites and silver powders other than growing it out of the water. Well, here's the proof. You can easily get the silver metallic colors right in your tank, and mine are doing well. Also got another silver leaf right here. I know the glare is annoying, but another silver leaf right here. So yeah, I mean, I need to clean a lot of fronts of tanks, scrub things, clean out some normal algae issues that are going on in here. But this is really my blue shrimp tank, and there are so many blue shrimp in here. I mean, this tank has gone nuts. I've never had a fully established tank where I just threw in 15 or 20 shrimp. See, I need a cull like that guy there. I mean, that could be a Malua for all I know. It's not, but I mean, my Maluas have gotten that blue now. But yeah, I need to keep these blue dreams nice and blue. And I dosed it with the no planaria, and it nuked the planaria. I mean, the planaria within 4 days was gone, and I haven't seen it ever since. all the way down deep into the substrate. The shrimp are just swimming around, happy as can be. The deal with the no planaria is it is just strong, strong stuff, and you got to be careful. Also, it did seem to kill some of my snails, not the ram's horn pond snails, but it did seem to kill some of the others. Now look at this little shrimp. This little guy is a blue dream, but look how low grade he is. He must have been like, where'd he go? He just did a disappear. There he goes. Look how low grade he is. He's got like barely any blue on him. It's very odd. I wonder if he crossed with like a red, like his mother crossed with like a red or something, and I just didn't see it. But yeah, you can see some. There are some that are really light blue in this strain. Also, very small Logonandra coming up finally, which I'm excited about. So yeah, when CO2 gets kicking in this thing, oh man, this tank's gonna take off. I'm gonna do trimming all this. This stuff's just, I mean, all it is it's just way too long. It's just super long plants that grew while I was gone and didn't necessarily leave the water at all ever. Even these guys, which grow up like little toadstools normally, grew up all the way out of the water. So yeah. All right, guys, let's see here. Let's pop this back. Hey, it's me, Amadio. So, what's going on, guys? Member for 6-month Oink Master, best fast regrowing plants with goldfish and cichlids. Valsinaria, hornwort, elodia. If you can get a big thick anubias that they won't eat in the first place, that can work well. Sometimes they won't touch Bulbitis hedulata or hedulata bulbitis. Any of the or bulbitis is probably a good call. Alex, how are you feeling today? Better than the other night? Yes, I'm feeling better than the other night. Hey, we got a super chat. Ding, 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 ding. First super chat of the night. 3G sponges stay in a bucket, no air, and be viable. Collecting opinions. Okay, so I actually talked to the freshwater botanical ecologist. I think I got that right that time, actually, about sponges, as in like freshwater sponges. But I know you're talking about like for your filter. But we started talking about all that kind of stuff, and there are literally billions of bacterial cells in that sponge, in a, say, 5 square inch sponge even. And those cells are then going to, how do I say it? They're going to die, but even the process of those cells dying, they're going to make then carbon dioxide, methane, oxygen. They're going to die, and the inside of them is going to kind of explode out, and they're going to essentially rot and die at the bacterial level. Some bacteria will come in and eat them, but what happens too is then the gases oftentimes will pocket in micro gas bubbles to the point where you may get some new bacteria colonizing it because you've got methane gas that you never had in that amount before, but you will still have probably some oxygen in there, not to mention just the fact that you're carrying it. And if it's a thick sponge, there's probably mulm in there. So if you haven't rinsed it all out yet, if you haven't like wrenched it clean in tank water and cleaned out the sponge, if your sponge looks dingy and dirty, the longer it will live, the bigger the clumps of area that it has, that things can kind of percolate in and hide in, just like cracks and crevices where it can have a little oxygen to exist in. It doesn't need much for, a few cells of bacteria to survive in that. So I would say that basically, the dirtier the sponge is matters, and then if you've washed it out or not. But if you haven't washed it out, if you're just chilling with that sponge, it's probably going to last somewhere between 24 and 72 hours if you were to have it out of water completely. If it's in water but no aeration, you've probably got a week to 2 weeks where the colony can still restart. And I asked that exact same question, like, how long can I leave that in the bucket? He said it could be as long as months sometimes. So, yeah. Casual Aquatics. Alex, by the way, thanks for that extended read on the Danakelia Shukuare. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Yeah, no problem. I was excited that you were alluding to something that I thought was it possibly on your page. Also, yeah, that those articles in this week's read, that was a score. Usually, a journal of that quality with like color pictures of the fish and like really rare fish like that. Usually you won't see that, especially in America. And that's why it is Italian guys that are doing the research with the Germans and Frenchmen, and I think two Americans. But basically, you won't see that out of the American journals. They won't lose money like that. They'll make you pay no matter what for 30 years. Whereas those journals over there, these guys got together and those journals give a retainer to the author a lot of times. And so they said 3 years and then we'll make it public. So they had the breaking news, they had the journal exclusivity for 3 years. And then they were like, you know what? Now we want the public to have it. The stupid thing is that the exact same journals are owned by, like the same overlord company. Maybe it'll be called like Scholastic Journal Press of the world or something. And that might have a North American division, and the North American division will never release it, whereas the Swiss and the French and the Italian will release editions to the public. So usually you'll have to go on a link and find it there. But I'm trying to do more of that, and I'm trying to go into Google Translate and just use the words of publications that have been published in the US and try translating it to Chinese or to usually Swiss and German are a safe bet, or French or Italian, and then re-entering it in the search engine and seeing if it's been published twice and once in Europe. Because if it's been published in Europe, then I can use slides of it on my channel if it's open to the public. Otherwise, they'll fine me hundreds of dollars for every time they catch you using something published, even a graph or a chart. I don't know that they would notice, but who knows? They have companies they pay to do that. Let's see here. Aquaballs, what's up? I'm doing Amazon Sword Tank tonight. Right on. That's awesome. Hector, hello. What's up, Hector? How's it going? Jerry Serple Morris setting up a linear air pump on a rack. I need to do that too, honestly. With a bar through the center like a digital 8. Do you think that will be efficient as a... Yeah, that'll work fine. I think you're totally good to go. Luke. Oof, $3,150 for an electrical bill. Let's see here. Alex, can you talk about risks of soft wood in an aquarium? Really, Moose, there aren't that many risks short of it mess, and then it could clog your filter and stuff. But actually, the more surface area you have, the better it is for colonization. So the sponginess of the wood and like it being rotten is not necessarily a problem in that it's gonna hurt anything. Usually, it's just gonna make a mess because your fish are gonna kind of like, try to get food out of it, eat algae off of it, and so forth. But it should be fine as far as like anything else goes, definitely. And then also just curious, is anybody up selling on Vivi yet? I've seen that they've got a whole lot more sellers on their site and a whole lot more people registered to buy. So I'm hoping to buy some Radnocentris ornatus on there. They've got some of those from a few collection points I've never seen. But I need to like get my tanks in order, my house in order first. And I've got till basically middle of November, which should be plenty of time to do such. But yeah, let's see here. Well, guys, we're at the hour mark, and what I really wanted to do was explain to you that whole crazy situation, the fact that I'm losing plants due to not having nitrates. Like, I actually need ammonia nitrates or nitrites, something like that. One of those. And carbon is the other one. And the fact that the carbon uh, that that was in that molmy algae stuff and that in the leaves that have melted and in your melted plants, that material is then full of enzymes and hormones telling plant material either to melt and other material to grow. So there's this simultaneous signal that are kind of not all plants share the same signals, but many do. Just like a plant has ATP for its cells, so do we, so do mushrooms. Like everything uses some of these basic signals, and it's pretty interesting. And it's related to diatomaceous algae, actually, is what I found out as well, that fluffy stuff. Now, I'm trying to decide if I should still make a standalone video on it and try to like condense my words a little bit better, and then obviously we wouldn't be saying hello to anybody. But if I do that and if it's helpful, I do appreciate if y'all want to just put it on and go watch football or trim your tanks or whatever. Um, yeah, because if all y'all amazing folks are just like, oh, we already got that talk, and you know, my core favorite folks that engage and like what I'm putting out. A lot of times when I cover something twice, it's like it does terrible because it never gets, like the people who have alerts set are like, I've already seen it, and then so it never goes to the people who don't have the alerts set to always on. So you guys are like far and away the first line of like when you guys watch it, it helps improve so that everybody can see it. Because a lot of people are saying, oh, I don't get any notifications. And I hate how that happens. When I subscribe to a channel, I don't care if I have 500 channels. I want a list of 500 new videos that came out that day. I don't want you to curate it for me. Do that on the like what's trending page, YouTube. Jeez. Do I watch Keeping Fish Simple? Yes. Yes, and I did see that tour also. Super cool. Super cool episode. Thank you, Corundulin Works. I appreciate it. You rock. If every stream was just a storyboard, your videos would still be in. Oh, well, oh shucks. Oh shucks. Long Family Show. Hello, welcome. You dosed EI before in my main plant tank. Sometimes it still isn't enough, and you just have to keep tweaking. Yeah. Favorite channel right here? Well, thank you, Moose. That means a lot. I appreciate it. And Relic Turtle, good to see you. Long time lurker, rare chance speaker. No, I always love it when you're here. That goes for all of y'all, but it's great to see a friendly face from the past. Friendly face, a friendly handle, a friendly bit of text that's in a color. And again, like all of y'all who want access to those, the journal that I published of 26 cichlids that are extremophiles. It's in the community tab, but you have to be a member for the $1.99 level member. But that being said, I list the source, guys, so you can probably find it on your own. And I told you can't get it in the American source, so you can probably find it on your own. But I was trying to make some perks for members, but I always feel bad when I give perks to members that I don't give to everyone because I really do think education should be free. But yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to get out of here. I think I probably will do a more condensed version of the limiting factor aspect of that tank before I start trimming everything. And even if it comes out in 6 months or if it comes out tomorrow, I don't know. But I feel like it's worth documenting because it was a problem I'd never run into. And it was a problem that really happened because I was keeping it in a high-tech fashion, high-light fashion before I left for a trip. And then I turned it all down and it came crashing down. I mean, that tank would have been able to have probably pumped in, probably could have dealt with like 10 times the nitrates and nitrogen that it was dealing with. But yeah. Oh, Nate DeShrimp. No, hello, my 55, we're going crazy, but my nitrates skyrocketed big time. Christmas moss took up almost the whole tank. Turns out the center of the huge plant started, yes, decomposing. Yeah, if they don't get enough flow and they don't get enough light, the center of moss, sawassertang, even just tangles of stem plants will rot. Also, they're not getting light on the surface of those parts of the plant. They're not getting flow, which means absorption of minerals and elements. And so they tell that part of the plant, will just be a stem. Don't worry about being leaves. And so they cause the leaves to melt with a signal. Then that falls away. That puts out those hormones I was talking about that feed algae and that also tell plants to melt. So it's like a double whammy, and it becomes this feedback loop of the center of your dense plants rotting. I had the same thing happen um, with my red root floaters for sure. So yeah, you want to mix those things around for sure. All right, guys. Well, I am gonna lose my voice here, I think. So I'm gonna stop talking. But as always, I appreciate you all so much. You mean the world. Brett, what's up? And I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. I'll see you on the next live stream Friday, probably at 4:30, 3:30 or 4:30. I'm not sure, 100% sure. And like I said, if you want me to come to your local club, just get me there and I will come and talk. I'm just trying to get my chops up, just trying to see the world on someone else's plane ticket, and then I'll speak for free, so to speak. That and, for a good cause is if anybody's doing some sort of fundraiser or something, like down in Florida, I waived all the speaking fees. Usually people say, I want 500 or I want whatever to come and do this. But I just waived all fees. And if you guys have a good cause and you're trying to put something together that's all digital, and you think I'm worthy of joining that lineup, I'm always happy to try to I'm always happy to try to help out with any causes like that, because we need to, help one another in the community and fight the good fight to help the helpers and to be kind to the other kind folks in the world and the non-kind folks in the world to a point. All right, guys. Well, Sketty, I hope you feel better soon, and everybody else, I hope you have a wonderful night. Thanks for coming. Don't forget to hit that like button if you like this. If you didn't, then don't. I'll talk to you guys on Friday. Have a good one. And rumor has it, I might be giving away another shrimp pack from Aquatic Arts sooner rather than later. So just throwing that out there about one of my random live streams soon. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. Bye.